Welcome back to episode 34 of the Unscripted Company podcast, joined by my co-host, Riley. Riley, say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
Yep, all the people out there.
All the people out there.
We are one episode away from yet another live stream. So if you're watching this before episode 35 has its grand old live stream, definitely this would be a good opportunity for you to go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, sign up for the newsletter, sell your soul yet again to another platform, and we will make sure that you are fully aware of when we go live. But if not, if it's after the fact, just go look at it. It's probably pre-recorded. You're a smart cookie. You can find it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's been another week. It's another week, not only just from like a work perspective and personal perspective, but another week in football. So I hate to ask you, but how'd your Dallas Cowboys do today?
Okay, let me put it like this. They made a comeback, but they still lost. Like the final score ended at 28-25. They do what they always do, man. Like they spend the entirety of the game getting slaughtered, and then they come back in the fourth quarter and think that you can. And there are times where they can win, 100%. But you're not playing the same football you played a year ago. Like last year, like you were beating teams that you probably shouldn't have beaten, and you were losing against teams that, you probably should have lost to, but you beat also. It was just weird. Like, it's just a weird season so far. My fantasy football league is all kinds of jacked up now because I got all kinds of injuries and everything. It's just not, it's just not a good year so far, man. But hey, do it for the fun,
Yeah, man, I know I sent this to you in a text, I think about a week and a half ago, because it was in the middle of yet another heartbreaking loss for the Cowboys. But there's a comedian, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, but Akash Singh. And he's originally from Texas, but he made the whole joke about how he didn't want to subject yet another generation in his family to the heartbreaking losses of the Dallas Cowboys in the Jerry Jones era. So he was, ending the fandom in his segment of the bloodline. He goes like, no more will I subject my bloodline to this painful intolerance of Dallas Cowboys football. So
dude, it is what it is. Like, I think Jerry Jones is just done. Like, he doesn't care about winning anymore. He just cares about the money. And I think my biggest issue with the Cowboys isn't the fact that they keep losing. It's the fact that they keep losing, and the same people every single year are like, I'm going to get season tickets, or I'm going to buy tickets to go to these games. And it's like, so you're going to continue to buy tickets, and those are fans. Like, I'm still a fan, but I have emotionally detached myself from that team. Like, when they make it to the playoffs, I'll give you a little bit. I'll bring some emotion back into it, but I have no emotion to that team, like, at all. If they win, awesome. If they lose, whatever. I can't continue to emotionally invest myself in that team anymore.
hats off to Jerry Jones, though, because I can't think of any other sports franchise or business on the planet that can lose as consistently as they do, yet still be considered the most valuable sports franchise on the planet.
Yep.
So despite all the losing, they're still, head over fist in profits, and they have an amazing stadium, an amazing community. Jerry Jones can print money with whatever the heck is happening on that field. But enough about football. I saw you put a note in our show notes. So just for context, everybody out there listening, like Riley and I, we have show notes, but they're very minimal. It's just to help us mentally understand what the heck we could be diving into this week. And I'm going to read this verbatim, and I'll let you provide context. But you said your chiropractor got arrested for sexual assault. Now, before you dive into this, I think everyone listening, including myself, wants to know, are you the one?
No.
Okay.
I was not.
Had to ask.
No, you're good. So before I go into this, I'm not going to mention his name.
That's fair.
I'm not going to mention who he is or anything like that. If you want,
we'll preface allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay. If you want to know more, just go look up City of Denton chiropractor, and you can look up that terminology. I will let everyone who wants to go do that, because let me preface this. People like this never seem like they're the kind of people that would do stuff like that. So there were some complaints that were filed with the city police department that they were sexually assaulted while going to see him as in a professional setting. In their office, they do everything with all doors open. Like, every door is always open. There's nothing that's ever hidden behind closed doors. The guy's wife works with him. She's the receptionist. To me, I didn't expect it. Like, so on Thursday, or I went last Wednesday, and then Thursday I had booked an appointment, but I canceled it because I had work stuff that would have coincided with that. So I was like, if I'm not going to be able to make it, I'm not going to pay the deposit fee, or what. I'm not going to pay an extra fee. So I went ahead and canceled the appointment. Later on that night, I get a Twitter notification that says local or City of Denton local chiropractor gets arrested on sexual assault charges. And in my mind, I'm like, there's like 10 local chiropractor offices in Denton, like minimum 10 local chiropractor
Like,
offices.
what are the odds?
What are the odds that it's my chiropractor that
You're
I
probably
just started
thinking it's some shady back of the home,
Yeah.
like.
And I just started seeing him like 3 weeks ago too. Like I stopped going to the joint. I started going to him because it proved to work a lot better on me. I kid you not. I opened up the article and it said his name right off the bat. I was like, oh my gosh. And they're a faith-based couple, like awesome people. Like allegedly, when people say like I was sexually assaulted, like you have to realize certain chiropractors have to do certain things to make sure that they're taking care of the issue at hand. Again, it could be taken out of context, but it was only two women complained, but they filed a total of 5 complaints to the city of Denton. And then they chose to indict him. He got arrested without conflict, like he went willingly. And I think trial is supposed to start like next month or something like that. So to me, I was like, what are the odds? Like he didn't seem like a bad guy. He's an awesome guy, actually. Like me and him have conversations about sports all the time, and we talk about real estate, the market, just business, like and I met him through the chamber, like all kinds of stuff like that. I didn't expect that, and to hear that, I'm like, okay, is it true or not? So obviously, like I'm gonna follow the story, but even if it happens to not be true, then I'm still gonna go see him. Like I don't think that should ruin a man's reputation if it didn't actually happen. Like I'm still gonna go see him. He did good work with me. He helped me out a whole lot, So it's like, but if you want to look up more, please do that on your own time. Like again, I'm not gonna throw his name out there, but that was something that to me I was shocked to see. Like I didn't expect that. So
Yeah. Well, let me give a little bit of a happier update, and then I'll pass it back to you because it looks like you have a lot of other things going on as well. Wanted to give a quick update just because I've been doing it every week, and I know 99% of the audience doesn't care, but I'm going to lean into it regardless. North Texas had a wonderful game this past Saturday. We demolished Wyoming 44-17. I don't have to go into any more detail. Just know, starting the year 3-1, going into conference play, so we're doing A-okay.
Oh yeah.
Funny thing that a couple funny things that came out of this week in college football. Let me just tell you, I love the sport of college football because there's a lot of pageantry, a lot of history, a lot of fun facts, a lot of, when you get students into the mix, anything is possible. So there's like 2 interesting things that came out of college football this week. The first one, Army and Navy. So 2 of the service academies, West Point, and then I forget what we call Navy, but the midshipmen, both of them are starting 3-0 this season. So both those service academies are undefeated currently. And based on who they get to play this upcoming week, it looks like both of them could be starting the year 4-0. Do you know the last time they started 4-0?
I don't know the last time, but I could see by what you put on there. It was a long time ago.
It was 1945. And the reason I bring that up was there was a funny tweet or an X post from one of the people that works at North Texas, actually, Zach Babb. Credit to him on this. So it's funny because if you look at it, Army and Navy are both 3-0. The last time they were 4-0 was in 1945. So if you think about what happened in the world in 1945, in September of that year, World War II ended. So his tweet's pretty funny here. It says, dude spent the summer improving to 2-0 in world wars and then kicked ass on the gridiron that fall. Shit went so well for both in 1945 that the Army-Navy game on December 1st was the national championship. Number 1 Army beat number 2 Navy 32-13. So it's just a funny coincidence of the last time the service academies really started out this hot. It just so happened to be coming out of World War II because back-to-back world champs, baby.
Right. Hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now, the second one, real quick, this is more the silly side of college football. But one of the things that, you'll see this from time to time, even in other sports other than college football, you'll have someone that, they post on social media, and Riley can see this. So for those of you in audio land, I'll describe this for you. But you'll see people like fans of certain teams say, hey, if we lose to this team, I'll do such and such. And usually the bet is so ludicrous because they're so confident that their team is going to win that they know it's not going to happen. So basically what happened, and this happens in a lot of college football and other sports, you had a person on X, they tweeted, if Kansas State loses to BYU, I'll shove a beefy 5-layer burrito up my ass. And so naturally, BYU went on to defeat Kansas State 38-9. And so then BYU football tweets back. All BYU football tweeted was live Moss. And that's currently at 1.8 million views right now. And there were a lot of situations like that happened this weekend. I'm not going to pull up all the examples.
Right.
But there was one locally in Texas that was so hilarious. SMU and TCU. So one's based in Dallas, one's based in Fort Worth. They're basically rivals. And they were having a rivalry game this week. And in the lead up to it, one of the controversies here is so SMU went to go join this one conference and they have a TV deal with the CW network. Mm-hmm. And so TCU created this whole promo video about how they were like, oh, normally we're featured on SportsCenter, but this week we're going to have to be featured on the CW. And it was a big eye roll, highly produced video. Like, it got a lot of attention on the internet. Well, SMU absolutely throttled TCU that weekend. And so then their athletic conference basically messaged back and said, well, at least your game was only featured on the CW, so nobody watched it. Anyways, yeah, that's my update, at least when it comes to college football this week. I know most people don't care about it, but that's what I spend my Saturdays with.
I still I entertain it. I don't watch it heavily, but I still keep up with stuff. I keep up with it more once they get closer to the championship brackets and stuff like that. Just because I know that Oklahoma and Texas were added to the SEC. So I know stuff like that happens. I keep up with stuff like that. So,
Texas is still ranked number 1. They're undefeated right now.
Texas is doing well. Oklahoma, not so much. Oklahoma is getting reamed week after week. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't like Oklahoma, but obviously being Texas OU, obviously you're going to go for Texas. But, I remember when OU used to obviously be a powerhouse in was it the Big 12 that they were in? Now they're not. The SEC is the big dogs. That's where you fight some teams. But before we obviously, I'll make this quick. It's not really a whole lot, but started biblical counseling this week. So I have my first class. Right now I've just been doing homework. I got a paper that'll be due not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. So, good stuff like that.
Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah. The first class was just an introduction, just kind of going over some stuff. We're going to really start getting into a lot of the stuff in the coming weeks
from the year and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think it'll be good. Now that I don't have to worry about my license renewal, cause I had to retake the class again for my last license renewal class for real estate. And I impromptu, I got home on Friday, class was already done. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to get out here and try to take this test. Let's see what happens. Made a 70. So I passed the test. And it was that class just really irked my nerves. Just because I made a 70 doesn't mean I don't understand the material. I'm not a test taker by any means.
I get that.
And so this was my third time taking the class. I passed the test. They had to watch the recording of the proctoring. So to make sure I didn't cheat or anything, which I didn't.
That's interesting. Did you take it at home?
Yeah.
So is the proctoring done through a webcam?
So it used to be where I would actually have someone real time watching me and I could chat with them through a chat box. But now it's it just records for me. It'll record me, my face and then the test itself. And then as soon as I take it, even if I was to pass it and I did something that they didn't think, if they thought I was cheating, they wouldn't pass me for the class. So I got the email yesterday. I just didn't see it till today that I passed the class and got the certification for it. So license will be renewed for another 2 years. Hallelujah.
Nice.
So now I can focus just on counseling and all the changes that we're going for our team. But bought a new gun a couple weeks ago. I traded in my Glock 22 and got a Glock 19. And oh boy, it is amazing. It is the chef's kiss. We went to the range yesterday and man, my grouping. Oh, fantastic. And then as you probably saw the other one, we haven't gotten them yet. because they were completely sold out. Like, this was probably like the biggest iPhone release to date. And so we ordered the new iPhone 16 Pro Maxes. AT&T was offering $1,000 off for a trade-in if your phone was paid off.
Yeah.
And so I got $2,000 off of 2 iPhone 16 Pro Maxes. So
nice. So what are you coming from? Because it looked like you had an iPhone just there.
We had the 12 Pro Maxes.
Oh, so you're going from a 12 to a 16.
Yeah.
Man, you're about to have like horsepower behind you on that one.
Dude, we'll see. Like, I'm not one of those people that feels the need to upgrade every year.
Yeah.
And so, like, we actually had the 8 pluses when we traded those in to get this. I think it was $700 off to get the 12 Pro Maxes. We had those for 3 to 4 years. They just got paid off like 2 months ago, and I was going to get the 15 Pro Maxes, but they were only going to give us $700 trade-in value. They were like, if you just wait till the 16, then we'll probably offer a better deal. I took a gamble, and they offered that, so we went in yesterday. I was playing around with the idea, but in my mind, doing what I do for work, I didn't want to take a chance on my phone crapping out, not having the money to just pay the full price for a phone. And so we just went up to AT&T yesterday, signed up for it. It'll take about a week and a half for them to get here because I didn't want to go to the store and buy them again or like talk to the people there. So they're going to ship them here, and then we go up to the store and take these back and convert everything over and stuff. So it'll be nice. It'll be a nice switch up. 256 gigs on the phones themselves. So it's a double what we have on these. But I'm excited to see what it's like, though. It'll be interesting.
Nice. No, that's exciting. It's exciting. You have to tell me what your thoughts are. I've gone back and forth over the years between iPhone, Android, or in this case, if it was an Android, it's always a Google Pixel. So
right.
I think I'm locked back in. Google has my soul, for better or worse. So
it's funny because like I use Google for all my other stuff. It's just for me, iPhone it just makes sense for everything that I do. Like I'm so used to it now that it's like I can't not have an iPhone.
Yeah.
And it's like, as far as a laptop goes, I already convinced myself that when this laptop goes out, I'm just going to invest in a MacBook. Like it makes sense at this point. But I'll definitely let you know. I've been watching videos about like, some of the iPhone 16 Pro Max features and stuff like that. And it's all screen now. Like you don't have like the spot that's like right here. All of that is screen, and it's a 16.9 inch screen instead of a 16.7. So it's like it's bigger.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice.
Well, cool. Well, I'll jump into our first topic, and you've been talking about this for weeks now, multiple episodes.
Yeah.
The Federal Reserve has slashed interest rates by, wait for it, 50 basis points, or for those of you who speak normally, that's 0.5%. So for those who are not playing inside baseball, basically what it is each 0.1% is a basis point. So in this case, if you say 50 basis points, it's 0.5%. This is a big deal though, because normally when the Fed goes up or down in their respective interest rates, they usually do it in 0.25 increments or like 0.25%. So this was kind of a big deal. Some people saw it coming. Some people didn't. Here in a little bit, I'll show you some interesting points as to what happens when they slash interest rates by this big of a percent historically. So we'll dig into that. But for those of you who may have missed it, let me catch you up real quick. And then Riley, I definitely want to get your take on this from like a real estate realtor perspective. So the headline from CNBC: Fed slashes interest rates by 0.5 point, an aggressive start to its first easing campaign in 4 years. The Federal Reserve on this past Wednesday, enacted its first interest rate cut since the early days of the COVID pandemic, slicing 0.5 percentage point off benchmark rates in an effort to head off a slowdown in the labor market. With both the jobs picture and inflation softening, the central bank's Federal Open Market Committee chose to lower its key overnight borrowing rate by a 0.5 percentage point, or 50 basis points, affirming market expectations that had recently shifted from an outlook for a cut half that size. Outside of the emergency rate reductions during COVID, the last time the FOMC cut by 0.5 point was in 2008 during the global financial crisis. The decision lowers the federal funds rate to a range between 4.75% and 5%. While the rate sets short-term borrowing costs for banks, it spills over into multiple consumer products such as mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards. So I'll kind of pause right there. I'm gonna scroll down here. We can kind of see the map of federal funds target rate between July 2000 and September of this year, 2024, and we kind of see, there's always the ebbs and the flows with it. But I want to pause right there. Riley, were you surprised by the announcement? Were you expecting it? Were you surprised by the amount of a cut in the rate? What's your take on it initially?
So I'm not going to say I wasn't expecting that. I mean, historically speaking, yes, they do go in increments of a quarter, like, because obviously you want to keep with the ebbs and the flows of the market. But I would be remiss to say that needed to happen. Like, they needed to go with that aggressively. This may kind of reflect like maybe this is the only rate cut that they're, because the rates did have kind of a downward trend, and then they cut the rate. So it's like they were already on a downward trend and trying to ease up, just with inflation as a whole. And then they were just like, all right, we're cutting it like, 0.5%. I will say, I don't know if they're going to do it. They said expect between 1 to 2 rate cuts for the rest of this year. So I don't know if they're planning on doing another one this year or not. Obviously, we still have October, November, and December to go. I could see them possibly doing another quarter of a base point going into like the holiday season, maybe to make it easier on people while they're shopping, stuff like that. I could see that being a thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, with how aggressive that they attacked it already. And I think that needed to happen because people just can't afford to live anymore. Like, we have, like, don't get me wrong, like, we have savings ourselves, but I'm having to dive into our savings like more often than what I would like to, just to take care of some things that I got to take care of. And it's one of those things where people shouldn't have to live like that. You shouldn't have to dip into your savings just to pay your bills every month, or to take care of large expenses that you got to take care of. And so I definitely think it was a good move on them to do that. We're not going to see a lot of changes right away. That's the unfortunate economic side of things, is that even though they cut the rate that quick, and it's a good thing for a lot of people, like, you're going to see changes pretty quick as far as like mortgage rates, like it said in the article, mortgage rates, auto loans, credit cards, things like that. But as far as consumer stuff, so like going to the grocery store, getting your gas, like all your normal everyday things that you would do, we're not going to see anything happen just yet. Give it like probably October. Like, that's when you're going to kind of start seeing things like really transition. Like, prices are going to kind of start getting lower again. Gas has already gone down. There was one day last week I was frustrated about this. I got gas for $2.45 one day, went back 2 days later, and it was $2.87. I was like, all right, what the heck is going on? But there is actually there's a scientific madness behind that. Like, there's certain days where gas is supposed to be more expensive than other days. So you have to like pick and choose which days you go to get gas. Unfortunately, in a perfect world that would work out. But
it reminds me similar of when I think it was like on the 30th episode live stream, how we were talking for a little bit about toll roads and the adjusted pricing with toll roads, how they'll jack it up during like rush hour or peak traffic periods. I imagine they do something similar with gasoline, where I know like over summertime, they'll increase the price of gas because I know people are doing road trips, they're out and about, traveling more. So I imagine there's days of the week when they track, okay, this is when people are most likely to go fill up their tank.
Right. And so, but I think overall, though, it needed to happen. I think that just from a consumer standpoint, and I mean, as for a professional opinion as well, like, I do think it needed to happen that aggressively, because again, people just can't afford to live it. And you're going to have people that still to this day, they're like, I'm not working. Like, I don't want to work. Like, I just want to sit at home. And I get that, hey, to each their own, by all means. But for the normal everyday worker, someone who's trying to really make something, someone who's really trying to like get out of maybe a deficit that they're in, it was just not possible, and now we're starting to see that downward trend. And I could definitely talk about it more in a future episode, but I feel really good about next year going into 2025 and even going through 2025. I feel really good about just the overall economy, depending on how November goes. Depending on how November goes, like, we're going to wait and see what happens. But it's just, I feel really good about it right now. Like, if the rate cuts continue to happen like they have been. So
one thing I do have to wonder, since you brought up November, and for those of you who are under a rock, November is the elections for the U.S. president and a whole bunch of other office seats. I do have to wonder if any of this had to do with the perception heading into November with the state of the economy. So technically, on paper, the Federal Reserve is independent of the government. Mm-hmm. However, we know they talk. We know there's opinion shared back and forth. So I do have to wonder if there's a little bit of an inkling of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like, hey, guys, we need to loosen the belt a little bit heading into this next election cycle just to help. Now, I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I can't help but wonder.
Well, historically speaking, and let me see if I can say this right to where it doesn't sound confusing. So it's like when one president goes into office, they're technically inheriting the back end of what the previous presidency did. So it's like people are like, oh, like it's okay. I'll be 100% honest with Trump and then Biden. We had a fantastic economy under Trump. Granted, it was still during the COVID times. In that particular moment, there wasn't like because of what Trump did, this is how. No, I'll be honest. Biden completely, like him and the Senate and everyone in between was just like, this is where we're at. Like, this is what you're going to get. And it was also to a backlash of all the COVID checks and the people just receiving unfortunately, I was one of the ones that had unemployment. I didn't want to have it, but that's just unfortunate. A lot of people did. And so that was one of the unfortunate, side effects of that. Now that we're slowly getting back out of that, still till this day, things are actually starting to turn back around. Now, I don't want to hear any Democratic side say like, oh, look at what we're doing to the economy, because it's not necessarily you per se. It is the Federal Reserve that controls a lot of this as far as the spending and the budgets and things like that. So kind of going into November, I don't want to say it's connected, but when it comes to election cycles, there are certain things that coincide. Like you can look up data, you can look up points, just like the housing market. 50 to 75% of housing sale, like you see a decrease in 50 to 75% of home sales in the month of November every election cycle. Like there are numbers to back that up. So go do some research. Like that's all I can say.
Yeah. Now, speaking of numbers, one thing I will leave certain folks with this, that are tuned into this podcast right now, and I'll leave you with this as well, Riley. So here's some statistics. I'll show you two different social media posts here. One's from Geiger Capital. So the last two times the Fed first cut rates by 50 plus basis points. So specifically, when they take this increment of 50 plus basis points, the last two times this happened was January 3, 2001. After that, the S&P 500 fell about 39% over the next 448 days. Unemployment rose about 2.1%, and there was a recession, also the downfall of the dot-com bubble. The time after that was September 18th, 2007, after which the S&P 500 fell down 54% over the next 372 days. Unemployment rose another 5.3%, and there was a recession. We're all familiar with the 2008 collapse. Well, if you fast forward almost a year exactly to September 18th, 2024, we will see what happens next. But also here's the graph with the unemployment rate of every single time that has happened historically. You can see the unemployment rate go up from there.
Yeah.
So, of course, it doesn't mean it's going to happen this time, but there is a little bit of a correlation there.
Well, it's fun. Leave that. I was going to say, if you want to pull that back up for a second, just because, like, for context, it doesn't mention, so it mentions 2001, 2007. So obviously that was a 6 to 7 year gap of when those first two happened. Okay. Look at how far the gap is though for the next one. You had a 10 to 12 year gap. I feel like technically speaking, we should have had one in between there. Then I feel like maybe like it would have been a little bit easier as far as COVID went, but there's no way of telling because it didn't happen that way. I will say this, with them cutting the rates like they did, I don't think it's going to be a full recession. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not predicting anything. I mean, Unscripted Company does have a habit of predicting.
We do have a bit of a track record, unfortunately.
For predicting some things. And I promise you, I'm not in the room with any of these people. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening. But I don't foresee it being as bad. But I will say this, though. In 2008, when we had the recession, you had low interest rates and very high home prices. Take that correlation what you will. If the rate drops happen again this year, and then we have a couple rate drops next year, and prices do not subside, but values keep going up, we're gonna have a recession. It's either gonna be next year or it's going to be in 2026. Like, I think if we do have one next year, is going to be the foundation for what's to come in 2026. And I could see us having a recession going into that.
Ooh, hot takes.
Like that's just because of just the trends. And this is stuff I've learned in my license renewal classes too, just talking about the trends of like just how real estate has gone. You can't argue with data. And the fact that we went from a 6-year span of when certain things happened to then it was a 12-year span, and then COVID hit, and then everything that's happening now. We even talked about this in some of our team meetings. Like, if we have like a crash, like a market crash, it won't be for like another 2 to 3 years. Like, I probably figure about 2026, 2027, but next year is going to be the foundation of like, we're going to have a lot of low prices for a lot of things. So stock up on everything you can stock up on next year while the prices are good and while you have kind of the money to do so. Because if it does happen, like, I could see it being a 2026 or 2027. And that's just what we've talked about in some of our meetings and groups and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Going back, one last little stat for you here, talking about correlations. So, of course, every single time they've slashed or cut rates by 50 basis points, you can see the 4 different dates there. Of course, September 18th being the most recent one. This is a graph of the NASDAQ composite. So all of the stocks that make up NASDAQ, you can see the red vertical lines. This is every time they've cut rates by 0.5%. Mm-hmm. So January 01, which is the first one here, well, the NASDAQ composite dropped 56% following that. September in 2007 dropped 53%. March 20, or March of 2020. This one kind of makes a little sense just because there was COVID and the world did kind of hit the reset button there, but it did drop 23%. But yet we continue to climb. So the question is, when does the correction happen? Which is going right back to what you mentioned. You know, it may not be an immediate correction period, but it could be over the next year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
Because it usually never happens like that. Now, I will say this, though, while you got that pulled up, look at how far those dips are on the first two, and then look at how shallow the dip is on the one for 2020. So there's going to be something that's going to happen. Like, there is going to be a house. Like, we talked about this in our meetings, and there's probably going to be a housing bubble that's going to pop because mortgage rates, everything was just too high. And so that's why we're like, I don't push people being like, oh, you got to buy now. I don't do that. If you can actually afford the payments now, then buy, and then you could just refinance later. Like, but if you can afford to buy a house now or buy anything like land, house, whatever the case may be, and you can always refinance it later, there's no rush, but that's only if you can afford it. With this, like, if this happens and we're still catching up on inventory, things like that, there's gonna be a lot of people that would probably be able to afford, but it's gonna be something similar to 2008 though, where it's just like, you get a mortgage, and then you're gonna have the housing bubble pop and then people like, that's just how the trend has worked in those previous years of housing and just mortgage rates and stuff like that. You're gonna continue just to write mortgages out, and then people aren't gonna be able to afford to pay those mortgages in the future, and then you're gonna have a lot of foreclosures, which I haven't seen a lot of foreclosures, but I've seen quite a few this year, like auction properties, banks buying the properties back, trying to auction them off. I have seen that, but I guess it's just because I've been more aware of it now, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's happening all over the place.
Yeah. I think also right now, just because in certain urban metro markets, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I think we aren't seeing as many foreclosures as we have historically, also because there still are enough buyers to where if someone's underwater on their house or they know they can't rationally afford it anymore, they are able to offload it relatively quickly in comparison to where, it's going to sit on the market, max 45 days in a hot urban market versus, it's not going to sit there for 6 months.
Right. Yeah. And there have been some houses you still see that, but it just depends on the area. Like it really does. Like, and there are some people that are still looking. There are some people that aren't looking. Like I've had people that told me, "Hey, I'm taking a break. I don't want to look anymore." But I still stay in touch with them because I'm like, look, you told me you wanted to buy. If you have the money to buy and you can afford the payment, here's your options right here. This is what you get. So
yeah, no, definitely. So we'll continue to update everybody listening because I'm sure this story is just getting started as to where all of this is heading, but we'll all experience it together at the same time. So Riley, let me hand it off to you. Which story do you want to hit on first? I see the one you have in the first slot here. You can kick it off with that if you want, or I'll let you decide on that one.
So we will go into that one. The second one's not going to take that long, but it's just because we're already talking about, like, we had the conversation about TxDOT and the toll roads. Was it last week or the week beforehand? But if you live in the state of Texas, let me see if I can pull this up.
I'll preface. I have a TxDOT text tag. They're all over Central Texas. It's like the go-to toll company.
So starting, I think it's in October, it's not going to be ran by Texas itself anymore. So it's not going to be a state thing, which to me was kind of surprising because Texas doesn't have a state tax. So they make their money based on toll roads and stuff like that. Like, that's how they make their money. But it will let Harris County Toll Road Authority handle collection, billing, and customer service. So in the city of Houston, where Harris County's at, they are going to be taking over all future processes and everything regarding your payments and stuff. Now, I'm pretty sure that the toll roads are still going to be, actually, no, the toll roads are going to be managed in Houston now. So, but it's not happening unwarranted. As you can see, they have managed this I can't remember exactly what the
Houston County Toll and Rail Authority, I believe. Or Toll Road Authority.
They've managed tolls in the Houston area for the past 40 years. So it's not like they're completely new in it. They've done it. Essentially, just a quick little thing. It just asks users to log into its account before October 15th to confirm their correct contact, vehicle information, and payment methods. Only active accounts in good standing will be transferred over. TxDOT said Texas tag users can still use your toll tags as intended across Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. If you don't have a toll tag but are still receiving bills in the mail, you can sign up for the service before October 15th deadline. Obviously, inactive account is just without any activity. They responded to it. They will take over all toll road functions from TTEC Government Solutions. Their contract runs through February 2025, but they can take over once an agreement is executed. TxDOT also confirmed that Texas Transportation Commissions will still have to sign off on the change despite informing customers of the processes and deadline. TxDOT can stop all transition activities until a toll service agreement is executed. So just a little bit of information for everyone. We talked about toll roads a couple weeks ago, but to me, I don't think much is going to change as far as payment, as far as like how much they're charging on the toll roads. I just think it's going to be it's just managed by a different company.
Yeah, that's basically what's happening. And then just like anecdotally, so TxDOT is historically like terribly mismanaged. So the whole joke down here is, so like TxDOT, not TxDOT, but TxTag, which is run by TxDOT, they used to be like the only ones that operated or that you could use their toll tags in like the Central Texas toll roads. Mm-hmm. Now you can use, the North Texas Tollway Authority tags. You can use, what do they call it? There's a couple out of Houston. I forget what they're called.
Right.
You have options now, but TxTag will often double charge people, not charge you initially, and then pay by mail hits you, even though you have a tag. Like there's scenarios where like they'll like overcharge your card or like your payment amounts or your payment method that you have on your account. So in a way, it's kind of a good thing because they suck at what they do. Like the whole joke down here is if you're going to get a new toll tag, go get a North Texas Tollway Authority tag because it's way better managed. You don't have to worry about being overcharged on anything or lack of payments. And so
that's what I use. And I'll be honest, even if they overcharge me, I'm like, ha, tax write-off, baby, business expense, like at the end of the day. So I'm kind of like, it is what it is. But I have it set at the amounts, and so they don't overcharge at all. And don't get me wrong, I spend quite a bit on toll roads. Like I probably shouldn't, but dude, it just, God, it saves so much time driving through Dallas and Fort Worth. Like it does. Um, but yeah, there's just a bit of an update for y'all. For those of you who live in the state of Texas or Oklahoma or Kansas, because the toll tag could be used through those areas as well. Just verify your information. You're good. I think this is a change that's for the better. So just to update y'all. Um, okay, so I didn't even know about this until my wife had told me about a TikTok or a video that she was talking about it somewhere, and I was like, okay, I got to look this up because she wanted to know some more information on it. So I looked it up, and it did in fact happen. I'm just going to preface this by saying what is going on with our kids nowadays. But for those of you who may have heard about this story, a 15-year-old named Carly Gregg will spend the rest of her life in prison for ruthlessly gunning down her own mother. Um, there is a video. Obviously, I'm not going to show the video. Um,
Guys, I'll preface, like, Riley's about to like unload this on us, but when Riley and I were like prepping for the podcast about 50 or so minutes ago, he had to walk out of the room. So I was reading through some of the news articles that we had put in our show notes, just, mentally prepping myself. And I had seen this video similar to what Riley had mentioned. Like it kind of blew up on social media all over the place, but I didn't know the context. And I read through this article and I was like, yo, this is not okay. Whatever is happening, I don't want to say like in this country, because every country's got their messed up stories like this, but like, yo, something's got to be done about this. Riley, I'll hand it back to you.
yeah, no worries. So this happened, I think. So this article came out on September 20th. So obviously this happened. The article came out a couple days ago, but this happened earlier last week. So, or like it happened a couple months ago because apparently the indictment had just recently started as far as her court case and stuff like that, because she spent some time um, in prison or in a holding cell kind of thing. So Mississippi teenager killer Carly Gregg sobbed in court Friday as she was found guilty of ruthlessly gunning down her mother and wounding her stepfather after they found out about her secret life with drugs earlier this year. Now, first of all, we don't know what went on in that home for her to obviously seek out drugs. Picture down below, you can kind of see like, she, well, obviously, when you use certain drugs, you develop certain facial features and certain things that happen. Like it just happens when you use certain drugs because they have side effects to them. Well, she was found guilty on all charges, including first-degree murder, attempted murder, and tampering with evidence. She will spend the rest of her life in prison without parole. Now, let that sink in. A 15-year-old girl will spend the rest of her life in prison. She won't get to finish high school. She won't get to experience anything like, getting married, like possibly having kids, like that's it. Like she's done. And again, you don't know what happened in the household to cause her to use drugs and stuff like that. But you also don't know where her mindset was at the fact that as soon as her mom found out, in her mind, her only option was, I got to kill my mom, instead of, okay, like coming to terms. And granted, 15-year-olds, I'll be honest, they consider, 15 to 18, like even probably 14 to an extent. In school systems, they consider you young adults. I'm going to go on record right now and say you are not a young adult. You know nothing. You are not going to know anything until you are 18 years old and you're out in the world living your life.
Well, also, it's like, it's a very formative time period of your life too. It's where you start to really think for yourself or have your own true opinions, albeit no matter how crazy they might be, you start to have your own opinions on life.
But it says the verdict came after the jury viewed chilling surveillance video of the baby-faced teen awkwardly shuffling around their Baltimore home, clutching a gun behind her back shortly before she shot her mother, Ashley Smiley, age 40, a math teacher at Northwest Rankin High School, in the face. So she didn't even she didn't try to go for body, like she went straight for the face, and
Well, and also she knew she was being filmed, right? Allegedly,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
she was like, so just for those of you who are on audio only, like there's like a home, I think it's like a Nest camera or like how you have like a Ring doorbell camera, but like
Right.
inside your home. And it's like she's facing the camera, hiding the weapon behind her back as if she knows like I'm not going to get caught, but like doing it very strategically in a weird way. And I don't want to draw conclusions on this, but I'm just like, okay, like there was a premeditated thought process that happened there.
Right. Now, again, I with what I have an issue with this right here. Okay. So again, at the end of the day, she is 15 years old. She probably like let's be honest here. She knew exactly what she was doing. There's no like innocence here. There's nothing that goes without saying on that.
Well, let's dig a little deeper here for just a second. If just below the photos in the article, the next sentence says the jury deliberated for about 2 hours before handing down their verdict.
Yeah.
So, at least from the little bit I know about some court cases, that's not a lot of time,
No.
meaning that the evidence was pretty damning, not
Yep.
in their favor.
Yeah. But because like I watched the Twitter video or TikTok video or something like that that showed this particular scene right here.
Oh, there's a video of that?
There's a video in court of her being
Oh,
in court.
okay. I need to look that
not
up.
of the incident. No.
No, I've seen the incident one, but not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have an issue with this because whether or not you're 15 years old or not, I get as a defense attorney, your job is to defend your client to try to get them off with either as low or as light a punishment as possible, if not just get off scot-free. Okay.
Yeah.
But I can tell you right now, this isn't, I don't think I could have done what this woman did. Like you killed your mother because you had an issue that you could not have been an adult enough to deal with to get help or to allow your parents to help you. Like your parents are supposed to be there for you in those ages. So there's some disconnect there that happened with her mom and her that involved her doing this. And there's I don't think it mentions how far back she was actually using drugs for.
Well, okay. So just for a second here, let's dive into like, we keep saying drugs. From everything I've read in this article, it was just marijuana. It was just weed. Now, I don't say that lightly. Like, not everyone is prepared to, I don't know, partake in that, you
Right.
know, drug. Because there's a direct quote in here from the Rankin County Assistant District Attorney, Catherine Newman. During the trial, they said, quote, "From the testimony of a friend, he was so worried about Carly's use of smoking marijuana, so worried about her being high, and so worried about her having these burner phones that Carly's mom didn't know about that he felt compelled to tell Miss Ashley Smiley that day." So, like, I'm not saying this is like a good thing. This is still a 15-year-old,
Right.
like not an adult consuming, you know, technically a federally illegal substance. But I'm just like, yo, this is not hard stuff.
Right.
But also for a 15-year-old, like, I guess, yeah, it is like not ideal during these formative years and your brain's not fully developed yet and it probably stunts brain growth. I'm not a scientist, so take my words with the biggest grain of kosher salt you can picture. But it's like, we're not talking about crazy stuff here. But this person had it in their mind that if my mom finds this out, my life is over. It's like, yeah, okay, you're going to get grounded. You have your phone taken away. But that's what being a teenager is about.
Right. Now, here's my other issue. I'll say it's an issue.
Here's what really grinds your gears.
This right here. Okay.
What does
First
that say?
of all,
Prosecutor said Greg faced the camera the whole time in a bid to hide the weapon, which was later identified as a .357 Magnum handgun. It goes boom, boom.
First off, where did she get it from? Was it her mom's? And second off, how did she get a hold of it? Like, how, if you have kids at home, unless you teach, like, even if you teach your kids how to use guns, like, and how to correctly operate them, like, you should still have them locked up. I didn't have that issue. Like, I knew where all the guns were at in our house growing up, and I knew how to use all of them if need be. But that's just the environment that I grew up in, you know. But when, and the thing is though, is like she was also on trial for shooting at her stepdad, which he survived, and he was actually at the sentencing. He was actually at the hearing, and the sentencing in court.
Well, that's what's wild was after the mom was deceased, she used the mom's phone to text the dad to bring the dad home. So
Yeah,
she pretended to be the mom on the phone via text message, of course, to the dad to get the dad home. Thankfully, the dad, it seems like he was only hit in the shoulder, so he was able to wrestle her to the ground, get the gun, yada yada. But like, holy dude, can you imagine being the dad? Can you imagine being the dad walking in your front door and having the situation unravel before you to where the first thing you encounter is it doesn't matter if it's your daughter or son, it's your child. It's
yep,
your child's pointing a firearm at you. First of all, that's terrifying enough. If anyone, let alone your child, you get hit, you're still, you're running on adrenaline. You're like, oh snap, I gotta, resolve this. Get them on the ground, get the weapon away. Okay, cool. You think you've resolved the issue at hand, and then you find out the real reality of the situation, and it's much darker than you could ever imagine.
right. And it's one thing to be like the biological parent. He was a stepdad.
Oh,
He was a
snap.
stepdad, so it's like I'm not saying he didn't have the emotional attachment to the girl or to the child,
That
but
might have helped him, honestly. That might have helped him.
yeah,
Making a
like
snap judgment of like, we have to like remove this person and this
right.
firearm from the situation.
And but yeah, I don't understand how, because marijuana, like when you look at, like, it's still something that a child should do. It's still something that, unless you're using it for like medicinal uses and or purposes and stuff like that, even then, it's to each their own. But when you look at it on the scale of like marijuana to like meth, I mean, there is definitely a huge difference there. But it's like, it also begs the question though: was she having mental like, issues beforehand before using it? I mean, you're a very influential person in that age, like you said, and you're still in development. So it's like, was uh was she dealing with issues and using that to cope, but unknowingly, it was actually harming her more than it was doing good for her. um but it's funny though, because like her friend told her, so this right here is what blows my mind. It says, "Have you seen a dead body or ever seen a dead body?" My mom was in there. The friend claimed Greg asked her when she arrived at the home. Greg carried out the shootings just hours after a friend had apparently tipped off her mom about the teen's marijuana use. So to me, you told the mom. How did the daughter know that her mom knew and was on her way home to confront her about it when the daughter was already ready with a firearm?
That's a good question. But they were at school
Someone,
too, so who knows if something was said at school or. It's a good
but
question though.
I wouldn't assume that kid wouldn't have gone up to her in a public setting. Like, I would have assumed he probably would have like approached her in the classroom and been like, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" Like, privately. So
That's
it's
true.
like, how many people actually knew about her usage and how many people knew about her mom finding out, or unless it was that same person playing both sides of the field, being like, "Hey, yo, like, your daughter's smoking marijuana," and then on the other hand, that same friend texts her and be like, "Hey, I told your mom that she's on her way home. Do with that information what you will." Like, and it's not a laughing matter, but it's like, like, how did all this play out behind the scenes? Like, and they probably have like a lot more articles on this. This is just the main article that I found. Um, but yeah, it says Greg turned down a plea deal and was pursuing an insanity defense with psychiatrist Dr. Andrew Clark testifying on Thursday that the teen was facing mental health crisis the day of the shooting. He said the teen was having significant mood swings, hearing voices, and having dissociative problems, which were made worse by her medications. Medications. Uh, and then her mother finds out she's smoking marijuana. Clark told the court, for Carly in particular, she's so scared. She so cared about her mother's approval. So for her, this was a crisis. I could see that, because if you have a mom or a parent that's a teacher, I could definitely see where you have a lot of burdens on your shoulder to an extent where you have to feel like you have to, get their approval at some point during, throughout your life. Um, and it could have been an insanity thing again. because even the dad, he said a sweet little girl had no recollection of the shooting. I've never seen anyone like that, even in a movie. She was not herself, and I did not believe she even recognized me, he said, adding that he and Greg still talk daily and the relationship is good, in quotes. The teen faces up to life in prison for the murder charge, plus 30 years to life for other charges. So,
yeah, I don't know, man. It's bananas. It's BANANAS. It is unfathomable. Like, I know stuff like this happens, unfortunately. Just
yeah,
you get enough humans on the planet, and statistically, stuff like this happens.
right.
But it's one of those things where, like, I can't wrap my brain around it. Like, yeah, I can use empathy and try to put myself in someone's shoes, but with that, it's like, that's like hitting a panic button. The panic button breaks, and so you have to break glass again to find another panic button, but there's not a panic button and there's a gun in there, and then you react accordingly. Like, there's so many things that just have to go wrong. But at the same time, it's like, all I know is a couple of news articles and the videos I've seen. Like, I don't really know who this person truly is. I don't know truly what their environment looks like. We don't know what their home life looked like. I'm not saying any of that helps alleviate the situation, but maybe it adds to the story that's, unraveled here.
Well, let me say this, and then we can move on, because I do want to at least maybe touch on some of the other topics we have listed out. But as a kid, like, I don't know if any of our viewers are under the age of 18. I don't know if you have to be 18 to be on this platform. I'm unaware of those.
I had a MySpace and I was not even 18, so I'm sure there's
right.
But I don't know if they're watching us. That's the
well. Be that as it may, if you happen to come across our content and you see this particular video or this particular recording, if you're dealing with something as a kid, like whether, from the age of like 14 to 17 or even 18, honestly, and so on and so forth, just throughout your life, if you're ever dealing with something, don't be afraid to seek out help, even if it's from your parents. Like, don't let other people influence you, because everyone's going through their own battles. Allow the people that are in your life that love you unconditionally and care about you, allow them to be there to help you. Don't let this be the end of your life, because I'm pretty sure, and I know there's kids out there that are young that are partaking in substances, and whether it be pills, Adderall, those you can get addicted to also, even as a high school kid. I'm not saying I was, but you can. And so I just want to preface by saying, like, if you're going through something or if you're dealing with something, whether it be from a counselor in the school or a teacher that you trust or your parents, tell them. Don't be afraid to open up. Don't let the other kids in your class judge you for opening up about something that you're dealing with, because guess what? They're probably going through something too, but they're letting their pride get in the way of what they're dealing with. So don't be afraid to ask for help in those moments. Like, don't let something like this happen to you. So I just want to preface that, if we do have any underage viewers here and any of their parents who monitor their stuff, we're not bad people. We want to encourage people to do the best they can, and we're just here to provide facts and talk about things that are happening in our society. So there you go.
That's that was very responsible of you. First of all, I'm gonna start calling you Reverend Riley.
Riley.
It's got a ring to it, but that was no. Right. I mean, I don't even want to double down on that, because you said it so eloquently, and that was very responsible of you to say that. So hopefully that doesn't touch anybody out there. But if there is somebody that needs to know that, hopefully that helps. Mm-hmm. Let me try to. I don't know how I pivot from that. Honestly, that was such a dark.
I know,
but it was good. Like it was one of those things where, like, and I mentioned this at the top of the topic, was I had seen the video, but I didn't read into it, so I didn't know the full extent of what it was. I was like, okay, I just know the person, wiling out. But, in other news, did you feel the rumble last week?
So it was so funny because me and Dana sat down to eat a day last week or something like that, and or like a week ago, and she was like, I thought I felt something, and I'm like, I didn't feel anything, and if she did, then cool. Like, but I know that it was a record breaking, like the 8th one in history that broke a record in Texas.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, last week there was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake that hit West Texas, and the tremors of that earthquake could be felt as far as Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, all over central and north Texas. So if you know how big Texas is, you know that's kind of crazy. That if something, this was just about 20 miles or so outside of Midland, if I remember.
Yep.
The article from the Austin American Statesman says a rare 5.1 magnitude earthquake was detected in Martin County at 7:49 p.m. Monday. The U.S. Geological Survey reported it originated around 21 miles west-southwest of Ackerley and 28 miles north of Midland. So this is like in the Midland-Odessa area.
Yep.
It says the U.S. Geological Survey received more than 1,800 reports of shaking throughout West Texas and as far away as Fort Worth and Austin, which the distance between Austin and where this earthquake happened was around 322 miles apart. So kind of crazy. And then, of course, it hit other communities such as Lubbock, Midland, Odessa, Big Spring, and San Angelo. So, and here's like a map of where it hit. This was one of, like Riley said, this was one of the top 8. I believe it was the 8th worst all time. It says Monday's earthquake comes less than 2 months after a series of 108 earthquakes that shook West Texas over a period of 8 days. I think we actually talked about that on one of the prior episodes. One of these of that series was a 4.9 magnitude earthquake in Scurry County, which prompted a county disaster declaration. At the time, it was the 8th strongest earthquake in Texas history. Experts say the large group of earthquakes was likely initiated by oil and gas extractions. The earthquake track has ranked the strongest earthquakes in Texas history. The oldest, which hit 7 miles southwest of Valentine, is also the strongest earthquake recorded in the state. Now, Monday's earthquake is now tied for the 5th strongest earthquake felt in Texas, along with the Snyder earthquake that was back in July and an Oklahoma quake in 2016. Here's the full rank of them, the top 7, with number 1 being that one in Valentine, number 2 being in Alpine, and then number 3 being the 5.4 in Midland. Kind of crazy. We're getting earthquakes out in West Texas. Now, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, to me, it's just like, I mean, I've never really known Texas for having earthquakes, California, Nevada, all those areas over there. But it's like, blows my mind that our earthquakes are being caused by all the oil drilling and the fracking and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's what's causing our earthquakes and that we can feel here. And I'm like, y'all need to calm down out there. Like, chill out.
I know, it's kind of crazy because, like, part of me is like, drill baby drill, we have the resource, why not go get it out there? But at the same time, it's like, man, what can we do to help mitigate that? Or, I mean, you always have a counter argument of, well, you have countries out there, Japan probably being the most prominent, or even San Francisco, where they build their infrastructure to withstand earthquake level events. And historically, Texas just hasn't had to worry about that. A lot of this country hasn't had to worry about that, which is totally fine. But maybe it's time to look at parts of the country where, because of where our natural resources are, do we need to reinforce or bolster the infrastructure to accommodate earthquakes?
I mean, that kind of goes back into like our talks we've had about like Texas and just how it's becoming like this country's like next super state, essentially. Like, it used to be California, like, they had everything, but now everything's coming to Texas. So it's like, it's one of those things where maybe in the future, but here's the kicker though. I feel bad for San Angelo, first of all, because they're just getting reamed with all this. Like, it seems like it's hitting them a lot harder than it's hitting a lot of, even though they happen closer to the other places, it seems like it's affecting San Angelo a lot more. But maybe out there in those areas, I could see them doing that. But also, too, there's not a huge population out in West Texas in certain areas. Like, all your population, like, if you look at the Texas Panhandle, and on the right side, like, if you, like, kind of cut down and hit, like, Abilene, and then cut down towards like Galveston, like, all your population's over there. Like, you don't have a lot of population out in West Texas. People only go out there for, again, your resources and so, like, to, work in the oil fields and stuff like that. Like, that's where a lot of your population comes from.
Yeah, I think it's only like 80%. I say only, like 80% of Texas's population lives within or just outside of the Texas Triangle, like DFW, Houston, San Antonio, up through Austin, Waco.
And that's a big population too. Like, we have over 30 million people. I think, no, it's more than that.
No, we're at like, was it 33, 36?
Yeah.
What's our current population? 30 million? Yeah, 30.03 million as of 2022. For
Yeah, but
context, California's at 39, so we're just about 9 to 10 million behind them.
yeah, but with a lot of people coming here, I mean that's definitely changed over the past couple of years. But there could be room to talk about that, but I don't think it would be an infrastructure thing that would need to happen here. Yeah, we can feel them here, but we're not affected by them as much as out there. I could definitely see that being I don't want to say cash grab because obviously you want to make sure the people are safe, but I could see that being something that someone could capitalize on if they really wanted to out there in West Texas, like
Well,
making everything.
Riley, we're going to have to retire from the podcast. We're going to start cashing in on this earthquake infrastructure out there. Because
Right.
honestly,
Yeah.
I think there could be some money to be made, especially if these quakes continue or if they increase in magnitude, which would be crazy. Like if we're getting into, sixes, that's crazy.
At that point, something would have to happen. But right now, we're still hovering around like the 5 to 5.5 ish. And we'll just have to see if the trend continues.
Yeah. Part of me is a little paranoid about all these nice, shiny glass skyscrapers they're building all over Austin and Dallas Fort Worth and all that. Can't help but wonder what happens to one of those when a big earthquake hits. But in more positive news for the state, real quick, and then Riley, I'll hand it back to you. X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, is moving its headquarters out of San Francisco officially to, drumroll, Bastrop, Texas, which is about 20, 30 minutes east of Austin. They consider it a suburb, but it's technically a different county seat. But Elon Musk is moving X out to Bastrop, which Bastrop already has. SpaceX. It has the Boring Company, which is this company that digs holes under the ground. He also has another business out there called, the Boring Bodega, which is like almost like a giant convenience store and like an airline hangar thing he has out there. But it's going to be off of Hyperloop Plaza out on 865 FM 209. I'll pull it up in real time so you can see exactly where in the middle of nowhere that is right quick. But it's really interesting because Elon is really building his little, company town out here. So everything you see here is all part of Elon's, empire. But just for comparison, you can see how far out it is. But
nice. Well, if they're ever hiring remotely, maybe Dana can get a job working for X now that it's in Texas. Who knows?
Maybe it seems like it's kind of a nightmare to work for that company just because he has extreme high standards.
Yeah.
Like 100%. remember when he first took over Twitter, he fired like half or 3/4 of like all the staff.
Right.
He's like, we don't need you. We'll figure it out.
Sure. I don't know. To end on I don't really know what kind of note you want to call this on. They're disputing all allegations for this, but for those of you who may have caught last week's episode, there was a secondary attempt on former President Donald Trump's life.
Ooh, but I wanted to see that Levi's ad. They were advertising the fall 2024 collection.
Dude, I know, man. It's just we'll look at that later when they come out with their winter collection. Apparently. So the law enforcement is shutting down bogus reports of explosives found near Trump's Long Island rally site. There's no validity to reports that explosives have been found near the site of former President Donald Trump's Long Island rally. The Nassau County police spokesman denied the claims circulating on social media just hours before Trump's campaign. The unconfirmed report earlier had wrongly claimed that explosive device was discovered in a vehicle during security checks at a rally site. Reports of explosives being found at the site are unfounded, said in a statement. Police said they were questioning a person who may have been training a bomb detection dog near the site. The individual with the bomb dog falsely reported explosives being found, and that individual is currently being detained by police, the statement said. False reports came just hours after Trump arrived at his now heavily guarded namesake Manhattan Tower Tuesday night amid a boost in security following the two attempts on his life, as in many months. And then it says the 45th president was struck by a bullet when a would-be assassin opened fire at his July 13th campaign in Butler, Pennsylvania. Then they foiled the second attempt, nabbed the suspect, and that's that.
So were they trying to, if I'm understanding this correctly, okay, that sentence at the top right there. So, sorry, no, it says the individual with the bomb dog falsely reported explosives being found and that individual is currently being detained by police, the statement said. So that's a direct quote from the statement that got released. So are they saying, if I understand this correctly, they had a trained individual, I'm assuming part of local law enforcement, that had a bomb dog. So it says police said they were questioning a person who may have been training a bomb detection dog near the site. But it's like, and we're not going to be able to know this, I think, from our perspective with this article alone, but if this is a trained professional, I'm assuming they're working with local law enforcement, because nobody, at least to my understanding, I could be totally wrong thinking this, nobody freelances as a bomb detection like individual. No one's just out here walking around.
Okay, so well, you do have. And please, somebody out there quote me on this in case I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they hire outside trainers that train, like they integrate them with the police, obviously, but they train them on how to pick up on certain things like that. Like, so it's like, hey, they may be like, there may be companies that partner with police departments, and you have like your dog trainers and stuff like that, because you do have to train the dog. So you probably have like a police officer that the dog would be working with, and then you have the trainer for that dog that's working with the dog and the police officer. I think that that's sometimes how that works out. But if let's just, I agree with you. I don't think there's anyone that's just freelancing, that's just out there enjoying their Saturday. It's like, oh, I'm just training this bomb dog. But if he was working with the police, to me it makes no sense. Like, why would you detain the man who's training a police dog? And again, if you are training the dog, who knows? Maybe the dog is still a novice in the training and doesn't know the difference yet, and may have picked up on something that warranted a search.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, I definitely agree. I mean, there are outside companies that will work with police departments to do things like this. It's just so weird the way that's worded, at least from what we have via the official report and statement. But I will say my theory remains kind of alive that the normalization of, you know, these events around the former president as he continues on the campaign trail, you know.
I was talking to someone about that. I can't remember who it was that I was talking to about that. It might have been someone in our church because like they were like, yeah, like our viewpoint's kind of. Oh, I was talking to someone at a networking group. I know, an odd thing to bring up at a business networking group, but he's a cool guy, and he was like, you know, he's like, our viewpoints more so align with each other, you know, like and all that. And he was like, and I brought up that theory, and he was like, he's like, you think? And I was like, I mean, maybe, let alone one time in our lifetime. Now it's twice that someone has tried to take his life. So it's like, who knows? Like, we'll see what happens. I told him, I was like, it is a running theory. Like, you know, we'll see what happens. But so far, it obviously, you know, we'll monitor this. You know, we'll give like brief updates, you know, as time progresses, because there's so much stuff that's just unfolding right now and happening that we do want to make sure everyone's up to date on what's going on, because you may not have had the time. So let us be your knowledge person, and then if you want to go verify and fact check us, feel free to do that. At the end of the day, we're just here.
What's wild is, I know we've talked about this before, but when we started this podcast, we really didn't want it to be like a breaking news type thing. But there's been so much good information, or just stuff that's happening out there to talk about. Probably a lot of it's just because it is, you know, election cycle this year. Right. And, you know, when you got Trump running and we had Biden running, now it's Kamala Harris and stuff like that, but it's kind of hard not to talk about it. And then you get the crazy news stories like the one that you brought up earlier too. It's just,
right.
What a time to be alive, man. What a time.
Well, I can say confidently to all of our viewers out there that next week will not be a breaking news. It will not be a political based thing. For those of you, I mean, obviously, you know, but October is coming up and Halloween is coming up soon. And we got a really good live stream planned out for y'all next week. So be sure to tune in on that, because it's going to set the pace for what we've got coming up in October. Again, at the end of the day, it is unscripted. So we just do our best to just go with the flow and see what happens. But we got some pretty fun things planned out over the course of the next month. I got some spooky ones
for that live stream. Doing like a top 10 spooky or horror story.
I saw yours, and I still got like 2 more to add, because mine are based off true events, but they're also
mine are all true events too.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be good next week. I think it'll be good. So tune in for that next week. We hope to see y'all there. If you enjoy spooky time, tell your friends who also enjoy spooky time, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Riley, I think you did a good job there kind of closing us out, but I always like to pass it back to you. Rev Riley kind of gave us some good words of wisdom earlier, but let me leave you with one more little, I guess, a moment to leave the people with a bit of
Yeah, of course.
knowledge. Drop some knowledge on these fools.
Well, first, before I do that, again, we do appreciate all the supporters. We appreciate everything that you guys have done, following, subscribing, liking, commenting, whatever the case may be, especially if you can't support in monetary value, which again, we do have our merch, our unscripted hoodies, t-shirts, yet to be released because we're waiting for the demand to kick up, but we do have official Unscripted Company coffee mugs. If that's something that you guys are interested in and want to actually partake in, then please let us know. But again, we do appreciate all the support that we've gotten so far, and just everyone who's tuned in. Again, we have Twitter, the newsletter, all those things in between. So check us out on any of those. Words of wisdom, again, just kind of going back to what I said earlier. If you're someone who's dealing with something, again, seek help. It doesn't have to be professional help, but just find some people that you can trust, that you can talk to, that can be there for you. I truly think that community and just having people that you surround yourself with that are going to be there to talk to you about things is definitely worth having in your life, if nothing else comes out of your life. But I definitely think that's worth having. As far as interest rates, as far as stuff like that goes, be prepared, everyone. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a fortune teller. All my information that I say as a realtor or just a business person that's in that world, I get all my information just exactly how we read it off to you guys tonight. Like, that's how I get my information. That's how you get your information. I just happen to see a lot of it firsthand. So just plan, be ready for what happens next. If you are looking to buy a house, or you're just waiting for the foot to be taken off the gas and kind of have some breathing room. So definitely keep up with that, and just plan for what's ahead. But yeah, other than that, we appreciate all y'all tuning in, and we hope y'all have a great night. We'll see y'all next Sunday on the live stream.
Nice.